Oh, hey man, would you be able to help me take a photo? Oh, sure thing. Pass me the phone. Okay, move to your left. Just a little bit more. Just a bit further. I think I got the shot. What do you think? Wait a sec. Well, you did ask for a good shelfie. Hey YouTube, what's up? It's Danny here from Board Game Sanctuary, and today in this vlog I'm going to show you one of my board game shelves. Think of it as Shelf Wars, A New Hope. This is the first of 4 vlogs as I take you on a tour through my entire board game collection. I'm going to show you games that I've played heaps, games I've never played, and games that might be collecting dust and on their way out. Also, don't forget, if you really like my channel and really want to help Board Game Sanctuary grow, I would really appreciate if you check out my Patreon page, link in the description below. Now let's get on to the tour. So in these 4 videos, my 4 shelf tour videos, I'm going to give you a pretty intimate insight into how I organize my board game collection. So the first shelf, and it's not going to be the one behind me, is a shelf that I keep tucked away in a kind of unusual place. So all the board games aren't all stored together. This shelf here is kind of like my feature game wall shelf, which I get to rotate every now and then. I've got 3 other shelves, all in different rooms. Not sure why I organize it that way, but that's just the way it's turned out. And we're gonna check out the first shelf, which is in a kind of weird, precarious place. Let's have a look. So if you watched a lot of my videos, you might notice that I have a very big side interest in aquariums, tanks, and ponds, and they've been a pretty big feature in a lot of my reviews and the vlogs that I do. And a lot of the time, this particular tank features in the video. Now, this tank is situated inside this kind of black tank cupboard. One of the places that I like to keep my board games, and please don't judge me, in this little shelf inside behind this door. These games that appear in this particular cupboard, which I'm going to talk about very briefly, are games that I really like, but are in a small box size. And I think I'm now thinking about it, most of my games are divided and organized by the size of the box rather than theme, alphabetized, or some sort of game play mechanic. I think I've just tried to find the best way to fit the different boxes in different locations of where I'm storing them. So let's dive in, not into the tank, but into the collection of small box board games. Oh, I absolutely love browsing board games, and now just looking through my collection, I've just realized there's so many other games that I really want to get at and play again. So, what sort of games are in this cupboard? Well, I've got Werewords, really great kind of insider style 20 questions game where there are different roles, the werewolves are working against the other players. Really fantastic word game, also organized and driven by an app. Ooh, Kokoro, Avenue of the Kodama. Now there's quite a few games that have got this Kodama theme. This one I actually haven't played. It's more of a flip a card and write and draw little paths between different locations on your board and scoring points by making the best connections. I think on the cards there are different types of lines that you can draw onto your board to kind of create like networks and mazes on your map. The next game in the collection is The Resistance. It is a social deduction game, one of the very first board games or social deduction games I played. Oh, first time I played with a group of strangers. Really loved it. Liked the kind of social element of it. Played it outside in a picnic, and it was super fun. Then took it to a weekend away, played with a group of friends, and then people started arguing. And then I decided that I don't think I really like social deduction games of this nature as much. Kind of has this very Among Us type vibe to it. but only play if you are prepared for some of the conflict that this game kind of generates. Artifacts Inc. by Ryan Lockett. Now, I am a huge fan of Ryan Lockett, and this game just really jumped out at me in terms of its theme, but also I love Ryan Lockett's art. It's one of his earlier small box games. It involves dice. I just haven't gotten around to playing this game because there have been so many other games on my radar, but it's definitely one I'm happy to have in my collection, but it's not at the top of my list of games to play. Walking in Burano. Now, this game I just had to pick up, first of all, because it's a beautiful AEG Emperor S4 game, but the fact that a couple of years ago I went to Burano and I saw these coloured houses, and I was a tourist that walked along the canals in the little, I think it's an island, Burano, just outside Venice. You take a little ferry from Venice out to Burano, and there's two other islands as well. I think one island where they blow glass and stuff like that, but this one just evoked the memories of that holidays. It's a card drafting game where you're trying to build the 3 levels of these colored buildings, the 3rd level, the 2nd level, and the ground level. The ground level usually features shops. There's multitude ways to score in terms of little features like little pots and cats and chimneys and window shapes that appear, and you're building a tableau of 5 buildings, and whoever gets the most points, as you know, wins the game. Decrypto. I always like to get this out after I've played Codenames quite a few times. Decrypto is super tense. Just imagine you're like in the Cold War and you're tapping into your opponent's communication, and you're trying to decipher what sort of code they're communicating with their own team. And if you can kind of I guess, intercept that communication and gain their intel, then you can decipher what their codes are. And if you intercept twice successfully, you can win the game. It's also got this word deduction element where you're trying to give a clue, but in a subtle way so that the other team can't pick up what word you're trying to describe. And I think it's got so many beautiful layers to it. Coup! One of the other social deduction games I got early on. This one is actually a lot better, in my opinion, compared to the Resistance. I know it's set in the Resistance universe. This just gives everyone a bit more of a role to play, and it's got more of a bluffing element, even though it is a little bit more social deduction. The bluffing element just gives a bit more of a framework around how the social deduction works. So now let's delve into the cupboard. Let's see what we got. So on this shelf, we have Kanagawa. It's a game about painting beautiful Japanese paintings. And it's by Bruno Cathala. He's produced and designed so many board games. I think I've actually got about 4 of his games, but it's definitely one I haven't played. I'm really drawn to the theme of the game, but I believe it's about drafting little picture cards, building a little tableau, and scoring victory points. Patchwork, this way. And I've just recently seen on Board Game Geek, I think there's like a Christmas edition where all the patterns are Christmas flavored. I think there's an American edition with American colors, the red, blue, and white. This game is really cool because you put all the polyomino pieces out in a circle, and on your turn you can pick polyomino tiles, you can get buttons, and it's all about timing. If you move too quickly around the little spiral track in this game, you're probably going to give the other player more turns. If you make little small jumps, you can kind of time how your turns are going to play out. There's this huge puzzly element where you're trying to fit all the polyomino pieces on your player board, and any little gaps, you've got these little squares that you can pick up along the way to fill in the gaps. Beautiful, beautiful button currency, timing element, and very puzzly nature. Haru Ichiban. Oh, there's a bit of a theme there. Board's coming out 90 degrees. Well, Haru Ichiban is also a 2-player game. It's about moving lily pads and frogs on a pond. And you've got these little flowers with numbers on it. And there's a master gardener and a junior gardener. And basically what you're doing is you're flipping these little flowers over, you're deciding on the turn order, and you're then putting the flowers out onto the lily pads to create one of 4 different formations. If you get a certain number of points, you win the game. This is beautiful because there's an ebb and flow to the lilies that appear on the pond. So you might be shifting the lilies one way, your opponent might be shifting them the other way, and it can you can use the little frogs to move around. There is a huge tactile abstract element to this game that flows really well, but also is perfect at a 2-player level. It's very Zen-like as well. A very unique 2-player worker placement game where all these special cards are placed outside in a border. You're moving your little character around the outside, and you're also trading goods. Also, there's a robber figure in here which throws the game into a different direction. You're also collecting cards and placing them in front of you and trying to score points that way. For sale! Yeah, so in the first round of the game, you're going to be buying properties. In the second round of the game, you're going to be selling properties and trying to make as much cash as possible. Now, it's really interesting because the 2 phases of the game, the first phase really sets you up for your success and your strategy in the second phase. The properties that you choose to buy are going to really affect the properties that you're going to sell in the next phase. And this sense of auctioning and bidding is quite pure. Beautiful game, and I know there is a deluxe edition that comes in a wooden box. Arboretum is a card game where you're playing trees and building an arboretum in front of you, and you're trying to build paths of trees from the lowest number to the highest number, and there's a particular number you can play that can kind of cancel out or outbid other players. And so by the end of the game, you're going to be scoring different paths through your arboretum and hopefully connecting them sufficiently enough in order to score lots of victory points. This is one I think plays better at the 2-player level. It's got a bit more of a to and fro effect to it, but it's one that I just love the look of, especially at the end of the game. The scoring and the tactics that are involved in this game are quite interesting. Now we are going to go to one of my favorite cooperative games, Forbidden Desert. Forbidden Desert. There are 4 pieces to your flying machine that are scattered throughout a desert, made up by a grid of, I think, 5x5 desert tiles with a little gap in the middle that represents the storm. And basically you're traveling around this map, flipping tiles over, hopefully finding 2 particular tiles that point you to the direction of one part that is hidden somewhere on the grid. If you find all 4 parts and get launchpad first, then all players win the game. It's not that easy because the little tornado that spins through this game just moves the tiles wherever they want it to go. They also throw sand and bury things under sand, as well as the fact that the sun can beat down and players are managing the amount of water that they've got. There are so many threats in this game. It is the next level game after the game Forbidden Island. Mouse Guard, the role-playing game. Mouse Guard is a comic series by David Peterson. He hasn't written very many of these comics, but the comics he has produced, beautifully illustrated, really engaging, anthropomorphic mice-themed stories. Definitely recommend the comics. I haven't really delved into the role-playing game very much. There are a lot of rules in this game, hence why I haven't actually played this or found the right group of people to play it yet, but I just absolutely love Mouse Guard, so I thought this was definitely one I had to add to my collection. In complete contrast, I've got this game called Compounded. It's about making different chemical compounds, periodic table, and you've got these little gems, and each player has their own little workbench where they discover, study, research, and find different elements that they can use to build compounds. Now, let's go deeper and into the lower threshold of this board game cupboard. We had to get down real low to see what sort of games are in here. Now, I've got the classic code names. Beautiful, beautiful game to start with. If you love Scrabble, any word association games, Codenames is way better than Scrabble, just for your information. I've got 2 versions. I've actually got Codenames, the original pink version, and Codenames Duet. Just love the word association elements to the games. I would prefer to play Codenames Duet, which is actually a cooperative version of the game for 2 teams and 2 players, especially if there's people who are playing Codenames for the first time. But definitely competitive Codenames is far more fun. You do need to kind of pick some really good clue givers though, because sometimes the clue givers can take quite a long time to come up with a clue. Just one. Imagine celebrity heads, except one person has the word above them or in front of them, and the other players have to give them one-word clues. However, there's a bit of a catch. If you give the same clue, then those clues cancel out, and therefore making it harder for the person who's guessing their word to guess their word. Lanterns. Tile placement game where you've got little different combinations of lanterns. You are trying to create either collect 4, collect 3 pairs, or collect one of each type of lantern in order to score victory points. Now the lanterns have 4 sides to them, and each side, if it's facing you, you get to collect that particular type of lantern. Speaking of tile laying, aren't I laying on the floor right now? Burger, where you're building cards. Each card has 2 ingredients on it, and you're laying the cards out to build the best burgers possible and try to satisfy the requirements that are set out on the table on the burgers that they want you to cook. Trap Words is a game where it's 2 teams pitted against each other. One player is the clue giver, the other players on the team are guessing the word, but the other opposing team are choosing words that the clue giver can't actually say, and the clue giver doesn't know what those words are, so they've got to try and tiptoe around the topic as best they can without stepping into the trap words that the other team have written down, as well as trying to get their own team to guess the key word. And then we've got Pictomania, which is a real-time drawing and guessing game where each player is allocated a secret word that appears on a list of 3 cards as they try to draw their picture as quickly as possible, and also at the same time they're trying to guess what everyone else is drawing. They are going to be racing against each other. So if you can draw your picture and express it in the simplest way possible, you will have more time to guess everyone else's pictures, and hopefully if you guess accurately, you're going to gain a lot more victory points that way. Very fun, frenetic game, and the list cards are kind of designed so that all of the words are visually similar. So guessing is actually quite hilarious because what you thought was a snake, it could have been something else altogether. Letter Jam is one of my favorite word games. Think of Hanabi and Scrabble blended together. You can see everyone else's letters that they're trying to guess, but you can't see your own. The aim of the game is for you to try and guess the 5 letters of a word that is pre-made at the beginning of the game, and try and unscramble it to make a word by the end of the game. But to do that, you need to know what letters you got. How do you find out what letter you've got? Well, the other players are creating words based on the letters that they see, and they're conveying that to the group. You're recording it down on a little colored notepad, and you're deducing the letter that you think it might be. And once you correctly, or you think you've deduced the 5 letters, you unscramble them to make a word. Players only well and truly win if every single player at the table has guessed each of their 5 letters correctly and also successfully created a sensical word out of their letters. Lotus, a game about building flowers, and you can see one on the back here. There are different types of flowers, and you're playing petal cards to try and complete flowers, gain points, and then also there are 3 special types of abilities that you can get and use. You're playing these little insect markers on there to try and claim the flower that you are building. Now Muse is a really cool, fun game that's kind of inspired by the game Dixit. Players are working in 2 teams competing against each other, where one player is giving a clue and the other players on the team are trying to guess which masterpiece card they're alluding to. Now, what is really cool about Muse, other than the beautiful artwork, is the fact that the other team gets to choose the way the clue giver gives the clue. It could be humming a song, it could be naming a published book, it could be drawing a shape with your finger in the air and you're not allowed to say a thing. They also get to choose which masterpiece card that the clue giver needs to give a clue for the other team. And that can add some huge elements of strategy, because you're going to pick a card that's going to be really hard to act out or really hard to find a clue for, and it's going to blend completely in with the other masterpiece cards. This game can be really quite tough. if you've got some really great creative thinkers in your game group. I hope you guys really enjoyed that small little insight into my board game collection. I can't wait to bring you the other board game collection videos. If you really like this video, please make sure you like, subscribe, and share. And if you really want to support Board Game Sanctuary and help it grow, just like I'm trying to help you guys grow your board game collection, then check out my Patreon page. Link in the description box below. I make my own videos, I do my own editing, get my own equipment, write my own scripts, and film everything on my own. Every little bit of support matters. Thank you very much once again for joining me for another vlog. Can't wait to bring you another cool video next week. This is Danny signing out. Don't forget to keep gaming on. Goodbye.